So I'm Krista Cowan, and I'm here with Audrey Collins. Audrey, thank you for joining us.
It's
You've
great
come
to be here.
all the way from England. I want to talk about World War I research in England. You've got some exciting things going on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
My day job is I'm family history specialist at the National Archives, and I'm part of the public history team, which has a wider remit, local history, diverse history. And National Archives has a 5-year programme to commemorate all the First World War centenary events. And next year the big theme will be Homefront, and that's what public history team are working on. And different members of the team are doing different bits of research. I'm looking at the civil service in the First World War, which, trust me, it's more interesting than it sounds. But at work and also a lot outside of work, I'm doing a lot of work on the town where I live, which is it's a little English market town called Chesham, Buckinghamshire, about 30 miles from London. And it's a terrific place to be researching in because it's got a very, very strong identity. It's changed since 1914, but it's still very recognisable. If you look at a modern map and an old map, and if you look at the names over the shops, they're the names that are on the War Memorial. And the local museum volunteers, they've been doing a terrific job researching the names on the War Memorial. And there's about 188 of them. And I was looking at this and I thought it would be really interesting if I could find out about the people who served and survived. And because I know a bit about doing family history and even a bit about military history, because in my job you just have to, I decided to try and expand that a bit and make a big database, see what I could find out about the people who served. First of all, people who served in the armed forces and the merchant navy, and also I'd like to try and find out a bit about the people who stayed at home and what happened to them. And so far I've got a database which has got about 10 times as many names on it as the War Memorial. It's still very much a work in progress, and I can't claim too much credit for it because there's already a fantastic website called Buckinghamshire Remembers, where some volunteers have done a terrific job. One of them it's a married couple, have researched a lot of the names on Buckinghamshire War Memorials, so there's a terrific amount of information on there. And also there's a separate database done by someone else, and he's been through a number of resources, local newspapers and absent voters lists, and he's listed every reference to people from Buckinghamshire. So I just picked all the Chesham stuff out of both of those, so I'm very grateful to them for all their efforts. But off my own bat I thought, right, what can I find out? What will I look at? First World War service records, and of course the big database to start with is the surviving service records. Sadly only about a third did survive, but they're on Ancestry, so that was the starting point, and you can do a few searches, search by place, and I've managed to find a lot of people who were either born in Chesham or lived in Chesham or had some association with it. And I've used a lot of other sources as well, because elsewhere we've got Royal Navy and Royal Marine Service records and the Royal Flying Corps and all sorts of other things. Far too many to list because it's fascinating, but probably a bit on the dull side for a listener. And it's just been the most tremendous thing. I've had so much fun doing it, and I've promised a database to the museum, and I've said this in public so often I'm going to have to deliver. But it's just tremendous doing it, and it makes you look at familiar records in different ways. It strikes me that all this First World War centenary activity, and it's a very, very big deal in the UK, it's a terrific opportunity to bring together people who are family historians, and they're looking for their own family, with local historians who are interested in their own area, because both sets of people, they're looking for records about people. So we're using the same records but just in a slightly different way, and looking at huge numbers of records. You wouldn't do this for your own family unless you come from the biggest family in the world. You just don't look at the huge range of records that you do if you're looking at hundreds of people who all came from the same town. So you notice patterns and you see what's typical and what's untypical, and of course you pick up amazing stories. And because Chesham has changed comparatively little, all the streets that were there in 1914, they're still there. There's a few more added, but all the streets are still there. the street numbering hasn't changed or has hardly changed. So I know from my list who came from which house. My house wasn't built till after the war, but the houses across the road, I know exactly how many sons went from each of those houses. I know which houses would have got the dreaded message from the War Office saying regret to inform you, and which ones got more than one of these dreaded letters. And you see how people are related. They may not have the same surname, but they're brothers-in-law, they're cousins, or they're neighbours. So you see a picture of a whole community. And it's really, it's very vivid. It really makes a difference to your walk to the shops. Because you see, you look at those houses and you know what happened there 100 years ago. And you look at the names on the war memorial, and then you walk down the high street and you see those names. You see, we have a shop, Summerling Carpets, the Summerlings on the war memorial. Directly opposite each other, we have Darville's, the bakers, still run by members of the Darville family, been going since 1838. And they sent sons to the war. Directly opposite Cox the saddler, they sent sons to the war. So they're still very much a part of modern day Cheshire. And there are lots of people there who are obviously the direct descendants. And it just makes me feel very involved with the community. That I only moved there 12 years ago. I have no prior connection with it at all. It just seemed like a nice place to live, and crucially, I could afford it. But it turns out it's a terrifically interesting place to live. And I'm quite pleased to get involved with the town's history, even though I've only been part of it for 12 years myself.